Hola, everyone. Simone Emilia Elizondo here from Silver Moon Astrology. And I'm here today because we have an eclipse a solar eclipse in Virgo. And basically, it's like a really crazy, hyped up new moon. And so I wanted to give you an idea of what the energy would be like since we are in eclipse season. 2 weeks ago, on the 7th of September, we had the lunar eclipse in Pisces. And so now 2 weeks later, we're having the solar eclipse in Virgo. Those are two polarities, Pisces on one side, Virgo on the other. And then we have the equinox coming up here in a few hours. So we have a lot of really cool, shaking things up, change energy with the astrology. So let's jump right on in. All right. So I'm going to show you. I don't want to turn my volume up. I'm going to show you the chart like I always do. I hope everyone's doing okay. Um, it has been warm here where I'm at in Austin, Texas. I kind of forgot where I was. Ah, Austin metro area, we're good. Anyhow, okay, so let me show you the chart. Here we go. Here is the eclipse. It is a new moon, right? So we have it is at the very end of Virgo. Virgo is an earth sign. All right. And then here's what I'm going to show you. There's a lot going on with this particular eclipse, but I'm going to minimize it, okay, as best as I can. So the first thing that we notice is that it is opposing by the degree to Saturn retrograde in Pisces. Saturn has retrograded back into Pisces. So we do have that tug of war. We also have some, it's an out of sign trine, okay, to Pluto retrograde and to Uranus retrograde, but I'm not really going to focus on that a whole bunch. I'm really going to just really stick to with the eclipses and how this is, energy that's potentially going to, impact us. So let's review from last time. We had a lunar eclipse in Pisces on the 7th, as I just said. Pisces is mutable water energy, right? So when we think about water, it's a fluid, it's emotional, and okay, this is driving me nuts. I just can't. Okay, it is emotional. I don't know why. When you pay attention to something and then it just sticks in your head. Yeah, that was that. Okay, anyways, so we have Pisces energy that was the eclipse on the 7th, as I've said 3 times now. And so the lunar eclipse is really about an internal integration, right? Something's happening, something's being shaken up, and we have to really focus on the internal integration of that. How do we process that? How do we make it, a part of our life internally, right? Because the moon obviously is emotion, and emotions are usually inside of us. Or so they say, right? Sometimes we can express those emotions, and that's a totally different story. So, the solar eclipse, though, is an external integration, right? So, solar is external. You're going to see that push outward. So, what does this mean, right? Well, eclipses are really unstable energy. They tend to bring change, maybe sometimes unexpected change, maybe sometimes change that has been expected and maybe we're not making on our own. But basically, they bring external changes, is what we're looking for, external integration. So, whatever the changes are, we have to learn to work within them in our environment, within our relationships. And I don't want to just say that the moon is internal, so we're only going to have like emotional stuff with, eclipses, lunar eclipses, and then we're going to have to like manage relationships and people and all of that with external. That's not necessarily what I'm referring to, but it's more of a lunar eclipses are like internal things that we have to adjust within ourselves. And then external solar eclipses are those things that we have to adjust within our environment and amongst the people, but they both go hand in hand because we don't have just a solar eclipse by itself. Okay, we have a solar eclipse and then we have a lunar eclipse, or we have a lunar eclipse and then a solar eclipse. So both of these are playing off each other. All right, so let me just make that very clear. And of course, when we have to integrate externally, there's always going to be an internal adjustment. And then likewise, if we're making an internal adjustment, then we're going to have to integrate that externally. So I hope that's made sense. All right. So let's talk about what Virgo energy is. Okay, so I'm going to start with Pisces again, because again, these eclipses are going hand in hand. And I did mention the date that the eclipse is happening. Oopsie. So that is bad astrologer. That is happening on Saturday, the 21st, at 2:53 p.m. Here Central Standard Time. And then, of course, the equinox is a few hours later, which I said already. Okay, so let's go back to this Piscean energy, right? Pisces is water. Right? It's fluid, it's compassionate, spiritual, it's creative, it's moody, okay, it's idealistic. And then Virgo on the opposite polarity, because astrology is all about polarities. Okay. I think life is all about polarities, basically, and finding the balance between both. But with this Virgo energy, Virgo is earth. Okay. And it's mutable earth, it's movable earth, but it's still earth, right? I mean, there's still a component of it that is going to be solid. Okay. Even if it's the tiny, grain of sand, it's still what we perceive as solid. I'm not going to get into the matrix kind of stuff right now, but it's solid. Okay. So Virgo tends to be practical. It tends to be wanting organization. It needs planning. It needs structure. It's okay. It's easier to change the plans with the Virgo as long as it has a plan for the plan of change. Okay. So those of you that have a lot of Virgo energy in your chart, you're really going to feel this. Okay. Virgo is considered the healer in the zodiac. Okay. It's the water bearer, but it's not, it brings like the sense of water, but it's not a water healing energy necessarily. It's like, so the reason I say that is because you're going to see like this beautiful maiden, and she usually is carrying this big jug of water, right? And that's not necessarily representative of, the Virgo energy, but more of the maiden energy, which brings healing, right? Water is supposed to be healing, but I don't want to confuse anybody. I feel like I'm confusing myself. Anyhow, Virgo is an earth sign. Let's just stick to that for right now, right? So, with this healing energy, Virgo really likes to get into the nitty gritty of the details of information of research. Okay. I have a beautiful person in my life. That's how I'm going to say beautiful person in my life. She has tons of Virgo energy, and she truly enjoys researching everything, finding fixes for everything, especially when it comes to health and wellness. And, she has all sorts of information, and she has all of this Virgo energy. She doesn't have a Virgo moon. She doesn't have Virgo rising, and she does not have Virgo sun, but she has so much accumulated Virgo energy in her chart that that's the predominant energy that we tend to, characteristics that I at least tend to see from her. So those are some of the qualities of this Virgo energy, right? So I mentioned earlier that some of you that may be feeling this, Virgo, okay, I'm going to focus specifically on people born between 1957 and 1971, okay? And I wish I would have gotten the date exactly, but it's around those time frames. Okay, so if you check your chart, it is between 1957 1971. I'm not really quite sure of the dates just yet. Actually, let me look that up, because that's going to drive me crazy. So bear with. Okay, I had to do that. Sorry. Okay, so from October of 57 to October of 71, um, that generation, including myself, we have Virgo Pluto, right? So Pluto in Virgo. So because the solar eclipse is very much in tuned to the Virgo energy, those of you that have Pluto in there are definitely going to be feeling this, especially those of you that are born between 1969 to 71. I was born 70. Yep, that's how old I am. This eclipse is going to be smack on top of our Pluto, and or Pluto retrograde during this time period. So yes. So Let's talk a little bit about Pluto because this is, for those of us in this generation, I'll make it quick. We are experiencing not only an individual but a collective amount of change. Okay, and it's probably pulling up themes of grief, sorrow, ancestral, maybe wounds or ancestral, qualities. Okay. And in Virgo, it really is about the time to heal all of those wounds for all of us that are carrying that Pluto in Virgo. So I will probably explain more in another video, hopefully. But yeah, but if you're interested, you can reach, we can take a look at your chart and we can work through some of those wounds and some of those, those ancestral healings that do need to happen. I have personally been really pulled by my ancestors the past, 2 weeks or so to really dive into my ancestral heritage, which well, I'm not going to go into the deep story, but we were disconnected from, right? Because we were born in Mexico and tenemos familia en Mexico todavía. And we don't see them. We try to stay in touch, but we don't really see them. And so I've been feeling the pull to reconnect with, my ancestors, my ancestral heritage, and so forth, right? And not just physically, but spiritually and energetically. So those of you between 1957 and 71 are probably feeling the pull of these themes as well. Okay. All right. So let's talk about what this eclipse means. It's a supercharged, new moon. The new moon is a time where we start the lunar cycle, the lunar month. Okay. It is a great time, typically a great time for setting some really good intentions, except I don't practice intention setting during an eclipse because, again, eclipse energies tend to be so unstable. And usually, when I've tried it before, I've done spell work before, I've done magic work before, intention setting, and it bad for me. So, what do we do during this eclipse? Well, this Virgo solar eclipse, the sun is about the expression externally, right? It's about your energy, it's about your sense of identity, okay? Where the moon is your sense of safety and comfort and, emotional intelligence. The sun represents your sense of identity, your sense of self. So, for this, eclipse, it really is going to be about solidifying, okay, for a lot of us, solidifying or being challenged to solidify, our sense of identity and how we are expressing ourselves. Okay. And the reason I say that is because we have Saturn, in Pisces, right? So Saturn is opposing, opposite of this solar eclipse. So for me, there's either I hate to use the word challenge, but it could be a challenge, a delay, maybe some difficulties, maybe some responsibilities. Okay. Maybe some, additional, slowing things down, adding to our plate, energy. And that in and of itself causes us to have to solidify our sense of identity and how we are approaching those particular themes in our life, right? So it could be anywhere from a relationship to, work to just your sense of identity and how you're expressing it throughout the, in your in and out of everyday routine. So with the sense of identity in Virgo, it is asking us to, it's going to challenge or it's going to bring some changes in the sense of how we feel really practically grounded, because that's what Virgo thrives on, right? It needs to have this practical, researched, organized, sometimes like, oh, like, what's the word? Ay, no me acuerdo. Hypochondriac type of very sanitized type of practicality. And this solar eclipse is definitely going to bring some instability to that, some changes, some fractures to that sense of hey, I have my plan A, my plan B, my plan C, and then all of a sudden we're like, whoa, shoot, we don't even have plan Z. C and Z, we're very different. Okay. So that's the energy that I feel, right? So an additional sense of like, okay, how are you really solidifying who you're showing up as in life? Now, spiritually, this is really like, look, Saturn is not a fun planet. It's just not. Okay. It brings seriousness. It brings, responsibility. As I said, it brings structure. It's not a loosey-goosey type of energy. And in Pisces, it's asking us to like really take a look at our goals, our ideals, our sense of, spirituality, our compassion, and how we're going to identify with those themes. Okay, because it's opposing this, this solar eclipse, uh, aka new moon. So it's asking us like, okay, how are you really going to integrate those themes into your sense of identity moving forward, right? And especially with the craziness of what's going on in the world today, it's like, are we stepping into more compassion? Are we stepping into more a sense of, ourselves? You try that. Are our belief systems, impacting our relationships? Are they impacting how we see the world? What are we placing importance and what's the word I'm looking for? Value in. Okay, that Saturn is definitely going to ask us to do that with the solar eclipse and how we're identifying to those themes. So remember, the solar eclipse is about identification, whether it's your own sense of identity, your ego state, or how you're identifying with, certain themes. So with Virgo energy, I'm going to say this. It's it can be a very healing energy as long as it doesn't get into the weeds, because it can also be a very nervous energy. It can also be a very, a sense of like needing perfectionism, okay, in their life. And so everything needs to be nice and steady. And so when an eclipse hits, this Virgo energy, that Virgo energy can cause some additional stressors like anxiety or neurosis or psychosis. I'm not saying that you're going to experience that. I'm just saying that these are the types of, discombobulations that we can sometimes feel. Now, without scaring everybody, I mean, typically what we're going to experience is maybe some additional anxiety about things changing, right? Maybe our plans aren't going exactly the way that we anticipated them to. Maybe we need, to really step back and to say, well, maybe I need to do some more research on, whatever it is that I'm planning on moving forward. But essentially, eclipses are really portals, okay, to change. So, I hope that's been helpful. This eclipse has really been eye-opening for me because there have been a lot of changes that have been happening in my life. I am sure that Virgo people with Pluto and Virgo are probably feeling the same. But yeah, so what can you do during this new moon? I, I would wait on setting like intentions. Okay. If anything, I would just take a look at maybe be ahead of the curve and maybe, take a look at areas in your life that you think might need to change. Or maybe there's been a whisper in the back of your head. Okay. That's already like, yeah, you should probably make changes here. Maybe you should, really go back to your exercise routine, or, maybe you should read this book, or maybe you should do this, and we're kind of like, yeah, whatever. Then life comes along and the eclipse is like, okay, now you have no choice but to exercise because, you have high cholesterol and now you have to change your diet or whatever it is, right? Or maybe now you need to read this book because you have a friend who needs this information and now you want to share it with them and you end up in a book club. I don't know. Okay. Something silly. So change can be anything from really small to, really, really big changes. Okay. So let's just be prepared for that. All right, that is it. I think some crystals to work with would definitely be during this time period. I love to work with larvacite. Okay, I don't have my beautiful pendant that Julie gave me, larvacite. I like to work with darker stones during this time period. I don't know if it's because it's like the eclipse is supposed to like, tune out, the light. But jet is also a good one. Tourmaline, these are all black stones, great for Virgo energy. I would also say like red jasper. Okay. And I like red jasper with Virgo because it can be like a spicy, energizing kind of vibe. And yeah, so or you can make an offering to the earth. I mean, that's a really great thing to do as well. So, all right, everyone, if you want to get a hold of me, you can find me at silvermooncounseling.org, or you can reach me at info@silvermooncounseling. And if you would like to share this little video with some information, sorry, Asul's back there. Where are you? He's back there somewhere. There he is. If you would like to share this information, please feel free to do so. If you like the video, like it. just, helps. And if you want to subscribe and get some more info about astrology, therapy, hypnotherapy, and all sorts of craziness, make sure to follow me. All right. Take care, everyone. Thank you. Blessed be.